待たせたな、カカロット。
今度の俺はちょっと強えぞ。
Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta were the first Super Saiyan 4 units released in Dokkan, and they headlined the second anniversary. They introduced a new leader skill meta into the game. 3 ki and 120% attack, defense, and HP to a certain super or extreme type. Super Saiyan 4 Goku was the leader for Super STR teams, and Super Saiyan 4 Vegito was the leader for Super AGL teams. They also gave 1 ki and 50% to stats to characters of the opposite type. In this case, Extreme STR and Extreme AGL respectively. Units with this new type of leader skill were referred to as Neo God Leads by the community. This type of leader skill was more restrictive than the God Leaders, who buffed all characters of a single type. But the extra 50% to stats made Goku and Vegeta by far the strongest leaders in the game. Both units also possessed a brand new type of ability, Super Attack Counters. When receiving a super attack, Goku and Vegeta had a medium chance of nullifying it and countering with tremendous power. This meant that you had a 1 in 4 chance of completely avoiding a potentially deadly super from a boss, which gave these units a solid chance of living attacks that almost every other unit would die from. Super Saiyan 4 Goku was supremely powerful. He gained 150% attack at the start of turn, which was the highest guaranteed attack increase at the time. He was the first unit to casually break the 1 million attack stat threshold, and he possessed the hardest hitting super in the game. Goku also raised defense by 30% for 6 turns on super, allowing him to hit solid defensive numbers from turn 5 and onwards. Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta on the other hand was more of a balanced unit than Goku. He gained 120% attack and defense at the start of turn, and greatly lowered defense on super. He was a far more reliable tank than Super Saiyan 4 Goku, but his offensive capabilities were much lower as a result. He was considered the second best unit in the game, with Super Saiyan 4 Goku taking the crown from Super Vegito as the new best unit in the game. The gap in power between them also widened when you took into account their best linking partners. Goku and Vegeta had the best banners to date, with Goku's banner featuring Super Vegito and Vegeta's banner featuring Rose Goku Black and Vegito Blue. Both banners also came with 2 new SSRs, STR GT Trunks and Physical Pan. Pan was a really good support unit, giving all allies 30% attack and defense, as well as raising all allies attack by 25% for 1 turn from her super attack effect. GT Trunks was also incredibly powerful. He gained 100% attack when performing a super, allowing him to hit decently hard. He shared 4 links with Goku, and also gave him 4 ki, making him a must-run on Goku's Super STR team. However, despite these 2 units being incredibly powerful, they are not the main reason why Super Saiyan 4 Goku eclipsed Vegeta in damage on release. Alongside the release of Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta, Day Dokkan awakened the INT and STR nuking leads, Super Baby 2 and Super Saiyan 3 GT Goku. Baby became a Grey Ape unit upon becoming a TUR, and was able to put up solid attack stats with his 100% attack at the start of turn. Super Saiyan 3 GT Goku was now also capable of transforming into a Golden Great Ape, and he gave all allies 33% attack, the highest unconditional support buff we've seen so far. He was the perfect linking partner for Super Saiyan 4 Goku, giving him a total of 83% attack from his links and passive combined. Super Saiyan 4 Goku was capable of reaching attack stats as high as 1.5 million, which made Super STR easily the hardest hitting team in the game. This set the precedent of support units, specifically units that buffed attack, becoming more present on teams, and many strong support units would be released over the course of this meta. The day before the start of the second anniversary, they released a new high difficulty event known as Dokkan Event Boss Rush. Players would take on multiple Dokkan events in succession with only 8 items, and the most difficult fight was Dokkan Event Boss Rush Stage 2 Super 3 difficulty. You had to go through 14 different Dokkan events in a single sitting, which would take up to 2 hours to complete. This was an absolutely brutal stage on release, with many people being unable to conquer this event. However, if you simply waited 2 days for Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta to release, this event became much easier to clear. They also brought back the Super Warrior Saga event, with more stages and rewards that could be exchanged from the 2nd anniversary coins that now dropped from this event. The 2nd anniversary officially kicked off on January 29th, and players were given a God Dragonstone upon first login. This red Dragonstone could be exchanged for one of the 5 attack up by 3000 type leads. Players were also able to acquire a Super Dragonstone by buying the 90+10 Dragonstone pack, allowing players to recruit one of the 5 God leads. Upon logging in every day and completing daily missions, players could get daily gacha tickets that could only be used on the following day that ticket was distributed. The ticket banner featured decent SSRs such as physical Super Saiyan Gotenks, who received a strong Dokkan awakening and was now holding up 2 fingers to commemorate the 2nd anniversary. This free-to-play Kid Goku and the 1st anniversary login card also Dokkan awakened and now held up 2 fingers as well. The 17th World Tournament was also released a week later with 7 new Dokkan awakenings, and Super Saiyan Goku and Demon King Piccolo were the best out of the batch due to their good support passives. Dokkan massively increased the amount of rewards given for wins during the 2nd anniversary. Players were able to acquire an additional Godstone at 5 wins, as well as several SSR tickets. The main prize card was AGL Super Saiyan Gohan, who was a fantastic option on Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta's team with his super class key and attack support. Super AGL wasn't as cohesive as Super STR, due to AGL units being split in terms of what their dominant key link was, so Gohan was helpful in bridging that gap. He also had a rare chance to stun on Super, but Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta's Dokkan events now possessed a Super 2 difficult stage that was immune to stunning. This was around the time Dokkan events started gaining immunity from stunning and other debuffs, which increased the importance of having big attack and defensive numbers to deal with tough bosses. For part 2 of the 2nd anniversary, on Valentine's Day, they released a Heroine Collection banner that debuted 5 new characters. TEQ 18 was a solid nuker, and INT Videl was an alright debuffer, lowering the enemy's attack from her passive and super attack effect. Physical Bulma was also solid, but the 2 standout characters were STR Pan and AGL Mai. Pan was a decent option on Super Saiyan 4 Goku's team with her GT links, and was capable of reaching good defensive numbers. AGL Mai was an incredible support unit, giving AGL types 3 ki and 2000 attack and defense. She helped make Super AGL more consistent and was a great run on Vegeta's team. A week later, we finally got the release of the heavily teased Virtual Dokkan Battlefield. This new game mode played very differently from the rest of the events in the game, so I'll do my best to explain it. You could only challenge this event if your rank was 150 or higher, and you could bring in up to 100 of your SR or above units. This mode consisted of 2 phases, a battlefield phase and a boss fight phase. The objective was to penetrate the opponent's barrier and cross the defensive line in the first phase, and defeat the boss in the second phase. During the battlefield phase, 5 random characters were chosen as your initial starting squad. You could drag and drop characters on one of the 3 lanes and let the AI play the game out. The characteristics for different types of units in the battlefield phase were as follows. AGL types had high movement speed, tech types could attack multiple enemies, INT types had high damage against the barrier of the enemy, STR types had high attack values, and physical types had increased HP and functioned as blockers/walls. There was a cost limit to deploy characters on the battlefield, so you had to be careful not to deplete your stamina bar by spamming only high-cost characters. Characters that passed through the enemy's barrier were the ones that you could select to create a team of 7 to fight the boss. The gameplay for the boss fight phase was the same as regular Dokkan fights. If you defeated the boss, you would be able to proceed to the next stage, with there being 20 stages in total. Every time you cleared a stage, you were rewarded with battlefield memory, which could be used to exchange for various rewards. As you can see, this event was quite complex and unlike anything Dokkan had done before. This event did come with the release of LR Ginyu Force, as well as 5 Dokkan awakenings of older SSRs via the Ultimate Clash medals added to the battlefield shop. LR Ginyu Force was an unbelievably good support unit, giving all allies 3 ki and 7,777 attack. However, the vast majority of players were unable to obtain him due to how difficult and long grinding battlefield was. With the exception of Evil Buu, these SSRs were pretty good upon becoming TURs, with Super Saiyan Goku and Metal Cooler being the standouts of the bunch. Cooler became an even better support unit, and Goku was valuable with his Rainbow Leader skill and high chance to stun on Super. These 5 SSRs were featured on a double rates banner that absolutely no one summoned for. At least, that would be the case normally. The first ever summonable LR was LR Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, and he was placed in the unfeatured pool on the double race banner with a 0.09% pull rate. Suffice to say, he was basically impossible to pull even for the biggest whales in the game. However, despite the controversy surrounding this decision, every player unanimously agreed that Gohan blew every other unit in the game out the water. He had a better version of Buhan's leader skill, giving 20% more to all stats. He also did mega colossal damage on both 12 and 18 ki, making him hit insanely hard even without an ultra super attack. Gohan had a nuking passive, gaining 18% attack per ki sphere obtained, and also had the broken ability of gaining an additional 1 ki per ki sphere obtained. This was a cheat code for LR Gohan, as he was the first LR to consistently be able to get 18 or more ki. He was by far the best unit in the game, and hit way harder than Super Saiyan 4 Goku linked with GT Super Saiyan 3 Goku, being capable of surpassing a 2 million attack stat. He would remain the hardest hitting unit in the game for the entirety of the Neo God Lead meta, and for most of 2017. Before we move on from the 2nd anniversary, we have to briefly talk about Global's version of the 2nd anniversary in July, as it was actually quite a bit different. Global never received Virtual Dokkan Battlefield, as it was discontinued on JP before Global even hit its 2nd anniversary. Instead, they decided to create a new legendary summon banner that featured the 5 SSRs from the Heroine Collection, Elder Kai, a Diamond Hercule statue, and LR Gohan. This banner dropped a random number of Ultimate Clash medals per summon, which was how global players were able to Dokkan Awaken LR Ginyu and LR Gohan. This banner could only be summoned on from tickets earned from summoning on Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta's banners, meaning you couldn't actually summon on this banner with Dragon Stones. Furthermore, this banner guaranteed a SSR per multi-summon, but you needed 10 tickets to perform a single summon. It was definitely one of the strangest banner formats Dokkan has ever implemented. Secondly, Global received the Legendary Election, which was a campaign that allowed global players to vote for one of 15 options to get a global first LR card. Vegito Blue ended up winning the election, with Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Hakai Beerus getting 2nd and 3rd place respectively. And lastly, for part 2 of the 2nd anniversary, Global received physical Super Saiyan Kaioken Goku and STR Pikkon many months ahead of JP. Goku was a strong unit. He did immense damage and gained 100% attack when HP was 50% or above. He also had the best link set in the game, possessing Over in a Flash, Shocking Speed, and Prepared for Battle. Pikkon was also quite solid and strangely had Prepared for Battle, despite it being a Saiyan exclusive link up until this point. On top of having Shocking Speed and being under Super Saiyan 4 Goku's leader skill, many people started to believe that Pikkon was optimal on Super STR teams. This was quickly disputed by many top players, as his damage numbers were decent at best, and Pikkon being optimal became a massive meme within the community. At the beginning of March, we got the 3rd Neo God Lead introduced into the game, Final Form Cooler, and he was the leader for Extreme Physical. Physical Cooler was better than anyone could have expected, and was on par with Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta. Cooler gained 100% attack and defense at the start of turn, and launched an additional attack that had a 10% chance to become a super. He was defensively similar to Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, while also having the potential to hit as hard, if not slightly harder than Super Saiyan 4 Goku with his additional attacks. They also started the trend of Dokkan awakening certain summonable SR units into SSRs during this time, with SR AGL Salsa receiving a Dokkan awakening via Cooler's Dokkan event medals. Most of these SR units during the Neo-Godly era were nothing noteworthy, mostly serving as super attack fodder for Dokkan Fest units or as 6-man options on weaker teams. A week later, Cooler was greatly helped with the release of the Physical Type banner that introduced 2 new Physical Type support units. Dokkan had released type-specific banners in the past, but they never featured new units and weren't worth summoning on until now. Gohan and Buu gave 3 key to physical types and 40% to attack and defense for super physical and extreme physical respectively, which was even higher than GT Goku's 33% support. These new powerful support units were clearly designed to be run with their respective Neo-God leader, and they were referred to by the community as type supports. All of the type supports would have the same support passive and mainly differed in their super attack effects and links. The super physical Neo-God lead hadn't been released yet, so Gohan didn't have much of a chance to shine when he came out. Super Buu on the other hand was a staple on extreme physical teams, and had a powerful super attack effect which recovered HP by 15%. A week later, Dokkan was celebrating reaching 777 days of operation, and players who had logged in for 777 cumulative days were awarded an AGL Hercule trophy card. They also released the first ever Saiyan Day unit and the 4th Neo God Lead, TEQ Super Saiyan 3 Angel Goku. For those who don't know, Saiyan Day is celebrated on March 18th because the numbers 3, 1, and 8 can be read as Saya in Japanese. Starting with Super Saiyan 3 Goku, Dokkan released a Saiyan character as a Dokkan Fest every March 18th in celebration of Saiyan Day. Super Saiyan 3 Goku was the Super Tech 120% leader, and he was centered around hitting very hard. He gained 120% attack at the start of turn, and gained an additional 20% attack per Rainbow Key Sphere obtained. Unfortunately, the player base was slightly underwhelmed by Super Saiyan 3 Goku, as he gained no defense from his passive or super attack effect, and also dealt less damage than Super Saiyan 4 Goku on average. Furthermore, a lot of his offense was also tied to getting Rainbow Key Spheres, and there was no consistent way to get Goku the Rainbow Orbs he needed. It also didn't help much that outside of Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, Super Tech was lacking good over and flash options, so the team was considered weaker than the other Neo God leads on release. Tech Mask Saiyan was a Rainbow leader that gave all types 3 key and 50% to stats. Despite us being in a 120% lead meta, this leader skill was still quite good and actually saw quite a bit of play. Mask Saiyan gained a massive 50,000 attack and 20,000 defense when facing 2 or less enemies, which was roughly equal to 150% attack and 60% defense under a double 120% lead. He also did immense damage and lowered enemies' attack and defense on Super. He was a really strong unit and possessed his own Dokkan event despite not being a Dokkan Fest exclusive card. These Bardock units also received Dokkan Awakenings from Mask Saiyan's Dokkan event, and they were all good options. TEQ Super Saiyan Bardock was a sealer that changed STR Orbs to Tech, making him a decent run on Super Saiyan 3 Goku's team. Physical Super Saiyan Bardock and STR Super Saiyan 2 Bardock didn't change much, but they were still effective support units. To wrap up the 777 day celebration, let's talk about this rare Goku from the Epic Showdown event. He actually received multiple Dokkan Awakenings throughout the past year and a half into Super Saiyan Goku and Super Saiyan Angel Goku. He was mostly an okay card for newer players, but he received another Dokkan Awakening into Super Saiyan 3 Angel Goku during this time. He was now a really good free-to-play unit, having a high chance of raising his attack by a colossal 180%. Since this character was fairly easy to farm and get to 100% in a hidden potential system, he was capable of outdamaging his Dokkan Fest counterpart with no dupes and low super attack investment if you landed the coin flip. At the end of the month, Dokkan went along with another April Fool's announcement in which they teased a new game known as Cyber Battle. They gave all players an STR Cyberman card that was mimicking the Z Warriors from the login screen, and this card actually saw some play in Super Strike events due to their low team cost. Dokkan Fest Super 17 was released on April 1st as the Extreme AGL Neo God Lead, and he was the first card in the game to build up stats from his passive. Super 17 gained 30% attack for each attack received, up to a maximum of 120%. Despite this style of passive fitting the character thematically, he was unfortunately the weakest Neo God Lead to date. It took a long time to build up his attack, as bosses back then attacked far less frequently than they do now. Furthermore, despite being defensively oriented, he wasn't as tanky as you would like, possessing only 40% damage reduction, meaning he could still take quite a bit of damage from big boss supers. His team was also quite lackluster, as it really only had a few good options. Thankfully, the banner unit GT-17s were great linking partners for him, and AGL 17 was a fantastic option on Extreme AGL with his 2 key and 25% attack and defense support. And the buffs for Extreme AGL didn't stop there. 9 days later, they released another double rates banner, which meant that there was a new LR in the unfeatured pool, LR Majin Vegeta. Majin Vegeta was a unique LR. He did mega colossal damage on 12 key and performed a colossal damage AoE 18 key super attack. This meant that to maximize Vegeta's damage, you wanted to aim for 17 key instead of 24 key, making him play very differently from traditional LRs. Majin Vegeta's damage was also among the highest in the game. He gained 150% attack when performing a super attack, allowing him to hit numbers comparable to LR Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. The big downside to Majin Vegeta was his link set. Despite Dokkan awakening via Dokkan event medals, he possessed the Shattering the Limit link instead of Fierce Battle, which was a lot less common. He also didn't link very well with the other units on Extreme AGL, and had to rely pretty heavily on AGL Rose's 3 key support. Still a very good and hard-hitting unit nonetheless. Speaking of hard-hitting, Extreme INT was next in line for a Neo God leader, and INT Kid Buu came into the game as an offensive powerhouse. He gained 100% attack at the start of turn, and an additional 70% attack when HP was 30% or above. This meant that most of the time, Kid Buu was rocking 170% attack, which was the highest attack boost we've seen so far. Kid Buu was very similar to LR Majin Vegeta. He hit very hard, but had a less than ideal link set. Kid Buu had 0 key links in his kit, meaning both Kid Buu and other Extreme INT units struggled to get super attacks off consistently. Super 17 and Kid Buu were quite unpopular because of their glaring weaknesses, and it also didn't help that Dokkan was spamming a new Dokkan Fest unit every 2 weeks since the start of March. However, Dokkan had no intention of slowing down, and at the end of April, no one could believe their eyes when they opened the new section in-game.
俺は悟空でもベジータでもない。俺は貴様を倒すものだ。
Dokkan released new versions of the most iconic duo in the game as a dual Dokkan Fest for Golden Week, INT Super Gogeta and STR Janemba. Gogeta was the Super INT leader, and he returned after breaking the game during the first anniversary, now stronger than all of the other Neo God leads. He gained 120% attack at the start of turn, and was super effective against all types. He dealt even more damage than Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and instantly became the strongest TUR. And if that wasn't enough, LR Super Saiyan 2 Gohan now had a 120% leader. He was already the hardest hitting unit in the game under a double 90% lead, but now with an extra 60% to stats. Alongside Super Gogeta, they propelled Super INT as the best team of the Neo God Lead era. STR Janemba was also a beast of a unit. He became the best tank in the game, as he was the first unit to gain dodge through his passive, giving him a 25% chance to evade enemy attacks while still guarding. Extreme STR was also a great team, as it was full of debuffers and units that linked amazingly with Janemba such as Omega Shenron and Perfect Cell. Janemba was a defensive juggernaut who could comfortably sit in front of the most dangerous bosses, while Super Gogeta annihilated everything in his path with his overwhelming firepower. Their banners were just as crazy as the units themselves. Gogeta's banner featured the return of Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Super Saiyan 3 Angel Goku, two of the top 10 best units in the game. Janemba's banner featured Physical Cooler and Tech Mass Saiyan, who were among the best extreme units in the game, as well as the aforementioned Cell and Omega. A month later, we got the next Neo God Lead in the form of Super Saiyan 3
Did you truly think you could defeat me with so little power?
Dokkan did the unexpected and dropped a global first LR Broly. There was no announcement or anything. LR Broly was simply live in the game after the data download from that night. He eventually released on JP a week later, but global was given LR Broly 2 months before their second anniversary, while they were still in the middle of the God Lead meta. As you can imagine, he completely broke the game and was better than every unit on global by a wide margin. He was considered roughly equal to LR Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, and was at bare minimum the second best unit in the game. Broly gave STR types 3 ki and 90% to stats, similar to Gohan and Majin Vegeta. He was a great leader on JP, and by far the best leader on global, eclipsing the stat increases given by the God leaders. Broly gained an astonishing 80,000 attack when he supered, and launched a guaranteed additional super attack. He was outputting 2 to 3 times more damage than every unit in the game on global, and hit almost as hard as Super Saiyan 2 Gohan under a double 120% lead. He lost 20,000 defense when launching a super attack, making him a glass cannon. But that was irrelevant, since Broly disintegrated every enemy he laid his hands on. Broly also became the new undisputed World Tournament King. He had an attack all 12 ki super, which combined with his ability to super attack twice within a turn, meant he would completely and effortlessly wipe away the enemy's team. LR Broly's TUR was also very powerful, and was among the hardest hitting units in the game, gaining 60,000 attack and also being capable of double supering. People who were lucky enough to pull a second copy of LR Broly actually opted to Dokkan awaken it into Super Saiyan Broly instead of feeding it into their LR Broly's hidden potential. LR Broly linked with his TUR version was a fearsome rotation that devastated the game with a barrage of super attacks. For Goku Day, we received a free-to-play Goku Jr. who had his own hidden potential orbs that you could farm. The numbers 5 and 9 in Japanese are pronounced Go and Q respectively, which combined sound like Goku, so May 9th is celebrated as Goku Day. Goku Jr. Dokkan awakened into Super Saiyan Goku Jr. and was a good free-to-play card capable of dishing out decent damage. Dokkan finally took a break from spamming Dokkan Fest in the month of May and instead pushed out the Tech and INT type support units. Second Form Cell and Tien had the same type of passives as every type support unit, but for Tech types. Tien possessed the Over in a Flash link, which made him a must-run on Super Tech teams alongside Super Saiyan 3 Goku. Tech Cell hadn't received his Neo God Leader yet, so he went under the radar for most people. Scouter Vegeta and Kid Gohan released a week later and were also must-runs on their 120% teams. Vegeta was a staple unit on Extreme INT and massively helped with the key issues on that team. Gohan was also really good and greatly buffed Super Gogeta and LR Gohan, who was unfeatured on the banner. However, Super INT was already a very stacked team, so he wasn't as necessary to pull for many players. At the beginning of June, we got the second to last Neo God Leader, Super Physical Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. Gotenks had the same super attack gimmick as his tech counterpart, having 3 different super attacks depending on how much ki he was at, with his 11 ki super being the most powerful. Upon reading his initial details, people were outraged that Gotenks lost 7% HP on his 12 ki super, and overall, people were underwhelmed by his passive. In response, Dokkan decided to buff Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks before release. He now raised attack for 1 turn on 12 key super instead of losing HP, and he gained 60% attack for his first 7 turns instead of 30%. He was now significantly better, gaining 180% attack for the first 7 turns from entry, making him the second hardest hitting Neo God lead after Super Gogeta. Super Physical was an offensive oriented team, with Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks and Vegito Blue putting out ludicrous amounts of damage. The Dragon Ball Heroes Teen Gotenks received a Dokkan Awakening into Super Saiyan 3 as well, and he was another great over and a flash option for Super Tech. The Friend Summon Hercule received a Dokkan Awakening into an LR in the middle of June, but he wasn't anything special. The most memorable thing about his release was the absurd amount of Zenny you needed, as you could only purchase 3 medals per day at 1 million Zenny each, meaning it took over a month to spend 100 million Zenny and acquire the 100 medals needed. A week later, they dropped LR Goku Black and Zamasu in the unfeatured pool on a double rates banner. Goku Black and Zamasu were considered the weakest summonable LR by many, but they were still incredibly powerful. They raised defense by 30% for 3 turns on 12 key super, and for 6 turns on 18 key super, allowing them to become quite tanky as the fight went on. They also built up attack per attack received up to a maximum of 120%, just like Super 17. The biggest strength this card had was their healing. They recovered 15% HP at the start of turn from their passive. And just like LR Broly, their TUR was very good and also healed 10% HP at the start of turn. So a rotation of these two together resulted in you recovering 25% HP every other turn. Around this time, the training tab was revamped and finally changed from this garbage to what we have today. Dokkan also held its first real-life event in Los Angeles, where players competed for the fastest clear time in a new mode called Ultimate Speed Battle. The event was made available to everyone, but it served little purpose outside of letting the live competitors battle it out for the best time. The final Neo God Lead descended in the form of TEQ Super Saiyan 3 Broly. Like pretty much every Broly before him, Super Saiyan 3 Broly was a glass cannon. He gained 100% attack at the start of turn, and an additional 12% attack and minus 10% defense per key sphere obtained. He was a great damage dealer, but his level of offense wasn't worth this unit literally having 0 defense at times. Because it was inconsistent to give Super Saiyan 3 Broly a bunch of orbs every turn, he ended up hitting about as hard as the other Neo God leads on average, while also being a massive defensive liability. He was considered one of the worst Neo God leads, though Extreme Tech itself was decent due to some recent additions. We reached the final month of the Neo God lead meta, and Dokkan kicked off the month with a banner that featured reruns of several past Dokkan Fests. They actually held a poll a few months prior on which Dokkan Fest characters JP players wanted to see return on a special banner, and the top 7 of that poll were featured on this Wish Upon a Star banner. The banner itself had terrible rates, so many people were advised to skip it and save for whatever was coming next. All of the Neo God leads had been released, so players were expecting some sort of major shakeup to the meta in the coming weeks. The AGL type supports came out a week later, and they were great partners with their respective GT Neo God leaders, with Rildo being Super 17's best friend. However, players were more interested in the news that came a few days later. Dokkan was implementing a new feature into the game known as categories, and teased that category-specific leader skills were on the horizon. People's suspicions were proven true, and players began speculating on what this new category meta would look like. The first 2 categories implemented in the game were Peppy Gals and World Tournament, and these categories increased the drop rates from the Turtle Shell and Zenny event respectively. We also got the countdown to the $200 million download celebration on both JP and Global, which further elevated everyone's expectations on what was about to come. They dropped a Universe 6 banner that featured SSR versions of Super Saiyan 2 Kefla and Berserk Kale, who had debuted in the Dragon Ball Super anime a couple weeks prior. Kale was an alright damage dealer, And Kefla was a really good defensive unit that had a 50% chance to dodge and a 25% chance to counter super attacks. However, they didn't matter at all, because on the same day, the Dokkan community witnessed perhaps the most earth-shattering leaks in the history of the game. And people were losing their minds over what Dokkan Fest unit we were about to get for this upcoming celebration. The era of the Neo God Leads was coming to an end, and we were now about to enter into the category lead meta, with the most anticipated character ever making his debut. Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Omega Shenron were the first category leaders in the game, and they officially kicked off the start of the category lead meta. Omega Shenron introduced the Shadow Dragon Saga category into the game, and Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta was the leader for fusion category characters, which specifically includes characters that fused via the Metamorph Fusion Dance, and not all characters that fused. These two units also came with another increase to leader skill percentages, now giving 3 key and 150% to HP, attack, and defense to characters of a certain category. This meant that Fusion and Shadow Dragon Saga teams gave 60% more to stats than a double Neo God Lead team. Just like Vegito Blue, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta had astronomical expectations placed on him before release, so despite being very good, many people were a bit underwhelmed by him not being a game-breaking card. Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta gained 120% attack at the start of turn, and lowered extreme class enemies' attack and defense by 20%. He was hitting only slightly harder than Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, which meant that he didn't hit as hard as Super Saiyan 4 Goku or even some of the other Neo God Leads. His debuff was valuable against extreme class bosses, and allowed your entire team to tank hits better. But the fact that his attack and defense numbers were considered to be on par, if not lower than the second anniversary units, left a lot of players very disappointed. However, Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta's saving grace was the final part of his passive. He possessed a super attack counter, but unlike Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta, who only had a medium chance to counter super attacks, Gogeta had a massive 70% chance to counter the enemy super with enormous power. This ability was incredibly powerful and single-handedly saved Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. He was one of the better defensive units in the game due to this ability, and on turns where he was able to get his counter off, his average damage for the turn would be as high as the top TURs. He also had one of the most powerful super attack effects in the game, greatly raised attack and defense for one turn, which further heightened his attack and defensive numbers post super attack. Despite being heavily criticized before release, the more players used Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta in-game, the more they came to appreciate just how powerful he truly was, and he became a contender for best TUR in the game. On the other hand, it was quite apparent that Omega Shenron would be an absolute beast based on his details. He gained 120% attack at the start of turn, and launched an additional attack that had a 10% chance of becoming a super. He also lowered all enemies' attack and defense by 20%, and wasn't restricted to just a single class like Gogeta. On average, Omega Shenron hit harder, defended better, and reduced damage to his allies more effectively than Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta did. At a glance, Omega seemed similar to Final Form Cooler, but he was actually on a whole other level of power. When evaluating units at 55%, Omega Shenron was the hardest hitting TUR in the game, and hit almost as hard as LR Majin Vegeta, who was a summonable LR character. It also greatly helped that Omega had a near perfect linking partner in Physical Sin Shenron, a banner unit that Dokkan awakened back when STR Omega initially released. Physical Omega 2 was in talks for best TUR in the game, and both him and Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta greatly changed the landscape of the game on both JP and Global. Or at least, they should have on Global. When Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Omega Shenron's details were initially leaked, Their leader skills were listed as to be released in the global database. No one batted an eye when first seeing this. Everyone assumed it was just a placeholder and that Omega and Gogeta's leader skills would be added when they were officially released several days later. To everyone's horror, when the units released a week later, their leader skills still said to be released on global, with an official statement in-game saying they are not available at the moment and will be released in the future. This gave birth to by far the biggest meme in the Dokkan community to date, and the shadow of to be released hung over global Dokkan for many months. The most widely accepted reason why Dokkan decided to go through with this decision was because global had just entered the Neo God Lead meta, so releasing Gogeta and Omega with their 150% leader skills would disincentivize players from summoning on the remaining 8 Neo God Leads, who for the most part had weaker leader skills. The 200 million download celebration officially started a week before the release of Omega and Gogeta. Just like during the 100 million download celebration, they released a special ticket banner featuring many past Dokkan Fests, and gave all players 1 ticket for every 50 stones they spent since the previous special ticket banner. They released a new special event called Looking for Mr. Right, which came with a new free-to-play Bulma that had her own hidden potential orbs. Bulma was a really good defensive unit and recovered decent amounts of HP with her ability to heal 7,777 health per rainbow key sphere obtained. She didn't blow people away at first, but she became more valuable as harder events were released over the next several months. Dokkan also held the very first Global vs JP competition, and the winner was decided based on the total accumulated clears of the Looking for Mr. Right event. JP ended up winning the competition and received a pink shirt Vegeta as a reward, while Global lost and received the Yamcha card. Yamcha and Vegeta were the exact same and only differed in their links, so they mainly served as fun trophy cards. Physical Super Saiyan 3 GT Goku and AGL Omega Shenron were the banner unit SRs released alongside Gogeta and Omega, and they were the best of the summonable SRs released this year. Goku in particular was more valuable, giving tech and physical allies 2 ki and 25% attack. Since he was on the Shadow Dragon Saga team, he could effectively support both Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Omega. And speaking of which, both characters now had the hardest Dokkan events in the game. Gogeta was the first boss with 9 health bars, and Omega had the toxic ability to lock your characters, just like in stage 1 of his Dokkan event. The most memorable event, however, from this campaign was the 200 million download special daily missions. You could complete special daily missions that rewarded you up to 20 Dragon Stones every day. The catch was that these missions were only available until a total of 200 million Dragon Stones were acquired by all players. These special missions ended up lasting for 10 days, so players were able to acquire a total of 200 free Dragon Stones. Simultaneously, they held a 200 million Dragonstone duel challenge, in which energy was accumulated based on the number of returning players and shares/likes on Facebook and Twitter. Steps 1 through 5 gave out copies of Big Ass Hope Goku, who returned for the first time after his debut during the first anniversary. And Step 6 gave out medals that allowed players to Dokkan Awaken Goku into Super Saiyan Goku. Super Saiyan Goku was actually a pretty good free-to-play unit, and put up surprising amounts of damage with his nuking passive. The 7th and final step of the worldwide campaign reopened the special daily mission starting from August 17th, and added another 200 million Dragonstones into the pool. These missions this time around were only open for 5 days before the 200 million Dragonstone quota was reached, allowing players to acquire an additional 100 free stones. The final event of the 200 million download celebration was the Legendary Challenge campaign. In order to make it easier for players to grind Prime Battle LR Goku, they halved the stamina cost of Goku's Prime Battle event and all Super Strike events. They also removed the 100 team cost limit from Super Strike events, and also increased the character drop rate, as well as doubling the amount of medals gained from each clear. On top of all this, players who acquired Prime Battle LR Goku before or during the campaign period were awarded 50 stones, as well as enough Kais and orbs to get Goku to super attack level 20 and 100% in the hidden potential. This massively incentivized both new players and older players who refused to grind for Prime Battle Goku to finally go out and farm all 777 of his medals. Nearly a week after Gogeta and Omega's banners, they released the final type support units, Hit and Kaba. They were the STR type support units and were great additions on their respective Neo-Godly teams, buffing Super Saiyan 4 Goku and LR Broly massively. At the same time, the 5 Baba Shop SSRs who were released during fall of last year received Dokkan Awakenings, and they all had the same leader skills as the God leads, giving units of their respective type 70% to stats. They were great leaders for newer players and functioned as good support units for their respective monotype teams. Another week later, we got the second ever LR to be featured on a legendary summon banner, LR Super Saiyan Trunks. LR Trunks was as powerful as the other summonable LRs. He raised defense by 30% for 3 turns on both 12 and 18 ki, allowing him to hit defensive stats similar to LR Goku Black and Zamasu. He was the first unit to gain crit chance from his passive, having a 50% chance to perform a critical hit. This meant that you wanted to build LR Trunks with full additionals in his hidden potential in order to maximize his damage. He was one of the hardest hitting units in the game, although it was somewhat difficult to get off Trunks' 18 ki super on super physical teams. But that problem was quickly remedied with the return of the Dragon Ball Fusions banner, now featuring 2 new SSRs. Celza was quite bad, but Whirus was an insane unit under one condition. You needed to have LR Trunks or LR Gohan. You see, Whirus was the first ever double orb changer in the game, and he changed tech and int ki spheres to physical. This meant that he would consistently generate tons of physical orbs each appearance, and he was incredible on super physical teams to help Trunks get 18 or more ki frequently. Furthermore, Whirus' orb changing capabilities were so powerful, he was pretty much optimal on super int teams that had LR Gohan. Whirus' role was to feed Gohan a bunch of orbs so he could obliterate the boss with a massive super attack. Whirus and LR Gohan were arguably the most lethal combination in the game, and things only got crazier when the next category leader was released at the beginning of September, Dokkan Fest Ultimate Gohan. Ultimate Gohan was the leader for Hybrid Saiyans category characters, which consists of characters who are partially Saiyan by birth. Surprisingly, Ultimate Gohan didn't give the same stat buffs as Gogeta and Omega in his leader skill. Instead of giving 150% to all stats, Gohan gave 170% to HP and defense, and only 130% to attack. This was likely done to nerf the Hybrid Saiyans team's power, since you could run this new Gohan, LR Trunks, and LR Super Saiyan 2 Gohan all on the same team together. As a result, despite the optimal Hybrid Saiyans team being very dominant, it hit about as hard as the Shadow Dragon Saga team on average, but not as hard as the Fusion team. As for Ultimate Gohan himself, he gained 120% attack at the start of turn and gave super class allies 50% defense. He also had a medium chance to guard all attacks, making him a good defensive unit with exceptional support capabilities. Even though he permanently stacked attack by 30% on super, Gohan performed pretty disappointingly offensively, with Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Omega Shenron doing roughly 50% more damage than him on average. He was often a floater on his own team, with the main rotations consisting of LR Trunks and LR Gohan. Hybrid Saiyans was also further buffed with the release of a new unfeatured LR, LR Goten and Trunks. They had a new type of leader skill that served as a slightly weaker version of the Neo God Lead's leader skills. Goten and Trunks gave Super AGL 4 ki and 100% to HP attack and defense, as well as Extreme AGL 2 ki and 70% to stats. LR Goten and Trunks were a unique unit that relied very heavily on RNG in almost all aspects of their kit. They gained 3 to 9 ki randomly at the start of turn, and gained 120% attack when attacking with 12 or more ki. This was actually a very solid ki mechanic, and allowed Goten and Trunks to not struggle for ki in most cases. They also possess two different types of super attacks on both their 12 and 18 ki supers. On their 12 ki super, they lowered their own attack for one turn and caused colossal damage to the enemy, while having a 50% chance of transforming their super attack into one that lowered defense instead. Each super attack had its own unique animation, with Gotenks turning into Fat Gotenks and Skinny Gotenks respectively. On their 18 ki super, they fused into Super Saiyan Gotenks, caused mega colossal damage to the enemy, and raised defense by 30% for one turn, while having a 30% chance of becoming Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks and raising attack and defense by 50% for one turn instead. They essentially had 4 different super attacks packed into their kit, and it was totally up to chance which one you would end up getting. 12 days later, they released a Tournament of Power banner and featured 4 new SSRs from the Universal Survival Saga. None of these units were anything noteworthy, with the exception of STR Topo, who was a solid support unit. Additionally, they released a new free-to-play Goku alongside the Universal Survival Saga story event, and he debuted the Universal Survival Saga category into the game, which was currently airing episode 108 at the time. Unsurprisingly, the next Dokkan Fest character was from that very arc, INT Angel Golden Frieza. Golden Frieza gave 3 ki, 130% to HP, and 170% to attack and defense to Resurrected Warriors category characters, which consist of those who returned from the dead and those who returned from being sealed long ago. Golden Frieza gained 150% attack and 50% defense at the start of turn, and lowered superclass allies and enemies' attack by 15%. Frieza was a decent offensive unit and was fairly competent defensively, but he didn't excel in either category all too much. Furthermore, his superclass ally debuff wasn't really an issue on his own team, since they mainly consisted of extreme class characters such as Kid Buu, LR Majin Vegeta, and LR Broly, who actually dethroned LR Gohan as the hardest hitting unit in the game, due to now being under a double 170% attack lead. Meanwhile, in the Dragon Ball Super anime, on October 8th, they released episodes 109 and 110 as a 1-hour special. These episodes depicted Goku's first battle with Jiren, and in it, Goku achieved a never-before-seen form known as Ultra Instinct. The same day the episode was released, they dropped a new banner featuring Dokkan Fest UI Goku as an SSR. Goku introduced the Realm of Gods category into Dokkan, which includes characters who are gods, possess god ki, or characters who have been directly compared to gods of destructions. Due to Goku being a SSR character with no Dokkan awakening, his leader skill and stats weren't all too impressive, and he didn't see tons of play as a leader. However, Goku's name in-game was actually translated as Ultra Instinct Sign/Omen, so everyone knew this form wasn't yet complete, and that Goku would Dokkan awaken into something far greater in the near future. A week later, we received a new legendary summon banner that introduced LR Bojack and Galactic Warriors. At this point, it was clear that the summonable LRs were in now some way related to the Dokkan Fest category leaders that preceded them, as Bojack was on Resurrected Warriors. He had the extreme int version of LR Goten and Trunks' leader skill, and gained 80% attack and defense at the start of turn. He also gained more stats depending on how much HP you were at, gaining up to 70% attack the more HP you had remaining, and up to 70% defense the less HP you had remaining. He was one of the tankier LRs in the game, and was able to gain a massive 150% attack when HP was full, allowing him to reach good attack stats as well. Around this time, we also received several interesting pieces of news that got the entire community hyped. In the same data download that contained LR Bojack, players discovered that there was a LR Spirit Bomb Goku in the database, which was later revealed to be the 1000-day login card. LR Goku was the best rainbow leader in the game, giving all types 3 ki and 100% stats. He was really good, gaining 77% attack at the start of turn, and recovered 7,777 HP and 7% attack and defense for every key sphere obtained. He was the second nuking LR after LR Gohan and could reach impressive numbers with several orbs obtained. Unfortunately, the vast majority of players weren't able to get LR Goku due to how exclusive he was, and it was incredibly rare to even see Goku on your friends list. The second piece of news that was revealed was through V-Jump leaks, and it was stated that a new feature known as Extreme Z Awakening was being implemented in November. This new feature would allow TURs to Z Awaken even further to level 140 and with a max super attack level of 15. The first character to receive an EZA would be the OG Dokkan Fest Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and he would have his own dedicated Extreme Z battle event in which you could collect Goku's EZA medals. Revitalizing older characters was something the community had wanted for many months now, so players were incredibly hyped by the announcement of EZAs. The last piece of news was perhaps even more exciting. Dokkan events were becoming increasingly easier as the months went on, and the player base was desperate for new difficult content stages. Dokkan finally answered everyone's pleas with the announcement of Super Battle Road, which consisted of 10 difficult stages, each restricted to characters of a specific type. The community got exactly what it asked for, and far more, not knowing that this new event would push not only their units to the limit, but also their very sanity. Super Battle Road was the hardest event the game had seen yet, and perhaps the hardest it would ever witness. If you didn't pop an item in any given turn, chances were very high that you would be greeted with a game over screen. The bosses attacked so frequently and so hard that even the newest Dokkan Fest at the time were getting slaughtered. On top of that, managing 8 items over the course of 4 separate fights further added to the immense difficulty of this event. Super Battle Road started the conversation of artificial difficulty in Dokkan. As players were so frustrated, they claimed simply pumping up the stats of the bosses to colossal levels was an artificial way of making events harder. It was a major accomplishment beating any of the 10 stages during the first few months of Super Battle Road's release, and it also gave rise to many interesting strategies. Characters that debuffed, specifically characters that had high chances to stun on Super, were vital in conquering the tough bosses. SR Jocko and SR Chaozu were summonable SR units that guaranteed stunned all enemies on their first appearance, making them must-runs on Super Tech and Super INT Super Battle Road teams. Characters that lowered enemies' attack and their leader skills, such as INT Android 13, also saw play as a way to completely mitigate any damage taken. Furthermore, this was one of the first events in the game where defense was arguably more important than offense, as you needed powerful defensive units to withstand the boss's onslaught. This event completely changed the landscape of the game, and Super Battle Road would remain as the measuring stick for new units for many months to come. If you were able to clear all the stages, or clear a single stage 20 times, you were awarded a copy of a new LR Kid Gohan. Gohan's only notable trait was his amazing leader skill, making him the best rainbow leader after 1000-day LR Goku. Type-specific Elder Kais were introduced in the form of Grand Kais, and they could be exchanged at the Baba shop using currency earned from clearing Super Battle Road stages. Moving on to the end of October, they released the Majin Buu Saga category leader, Dokkan Fest Super Vegito. This unit was a powered-up version of AGL Super Vegito. He reduced damage received from normal attacks by 50% and countered with tremendous power. What made him crazy though was the fact that he gained 10% attack with every attack received, up to a maximum of 100%. He became far and away the hardest hitting TUR, and could rival the damage output of the top LRs when his passive was fully built up. However, this unit had one glaring flaw when compared to AGL Super Vegito, and that was the fact that his damage reduction was 30% less. He was capable of taking some damage from normals in Super Battle Road, whereas AGL Super Vegito was impervious to all normals in the game. This wasn't the biggest deal on release, as he was still able to tank somewhat competently, but this prevented physical Super Vegito from aging gracefully in the coming months. Alongside Super Vegito, they released the first Halloween special event, which came with a new free-to-play Candy Vegito. Candy Vegito was a fantastic free-to-play unit, and was a viable option in Super Battle Road with his 50% chance to dodge and 20% chance to stun on Super. Continuing the trend of releasing new units alongside the anime, Dokkan released a new Super Saiyan Kefla unit 2 days after her appearance in episode 115. Just like UI Sign Goku, she was released as a SSR and wasn't able to be Dokkan awakened. She introduced the Potara category into the game, which includes characters that fused via the Potara earrings and characters that regularly wear the Potara earrings such as the Kais. She changed INT Key Spheres to physical, had a medium chance to evade enemies' attacks, and launched an additional attack which had a medium chance to be a super. She was also a nuker that gained 10% attack and defense per physical key sphere obtained. She had several strong abilities in her kit that allowed her to perform decently well despite only being a SSR. However, most people don't remember Kefla's release for the unit herself, but rather for the circumstances surrounding her. For the first several hours of Kefla's banner being live, there was a bug that displayed different character lists and summoning rates for different players depending on when you opened the character list. The actual characters that could be pulled, as well as the summoning rates were correct, even though the bug would show otherwise. Due to false rates being illegal, with the possibility of legal claims being brought up against the developers, all players who summoned on the banner during the period where this bug occurred were refunded all Dragon Stones used, and all players were given 300 stones as compensation. This was a serious issue at the time that could have caused Dokkan to face serious legal ramifications, but thankfully, they quickly fixed the issue and gave JP players suitable compensation. However, since 300 stones was such a massive amount, global players felt left out, and for the next several years, anytime there was a bug or issue on global, the community would half-jokingly demand 300 Dragon Stones as compensation. Coming off the Kefla banner controversy, a week later, they finally released Super Saiyan 3 Goku's Extreme Z Battle. The event started at level 1, and you needed to clear 30 stages to acquire all of Goku's EZA medals, with each stage getting progressively harder. These stages cost 0 stamina, but you couldn't use any support items. Characters from the Resurrected Warriors category took less damage and caused increased damage to Goku, with Extreme Int and Extreme Tech characters doing even more damage. The last few stages were basically impossible to complete unless you had Angel Gold and Frieza, who led Resurrected Warriors. And even then, it was extremely difficult to beat level 30 Goku, who was one-shotting any unit he supered that wasn't Tech or LR Bojack. This event was so difficult that the recommended strategy for most players was to use SR Devilman from the Dragon Ball Saga banner. However, Super Saiyan 3 Goku at level 30 could survive Devilman's super attack when he got the 1% proc, so your Devilman needed to have a few super attack levels and be run under an actual leader in order to one-hit KO Goku. This insane challenge was worth it, however, because not only did you get 30 stones and 11 AGL Grand Kais, you were also able to EZA Super Saiyan 3 Goku into a beast of a unit. His leader skill was now equivalent to AGL Super Vegito's, and his super attack was changed from Supreme to Immense. He gained 70% defense at the start of turn, and 120% attack for 7 turns from the character's entry. Combined with his increased stats, Super Saiyan 3 Goku was now able to tank effectively, and reclaimed his position as one of the hardest hitting units in the game. While JP players were fighting for their lives against Super Saiyan 3 Goku's Extreme Z Battle, global players had to deal with yet another controversy on their hands. At the end of November, Global Dokkan released a thank you celebration and finally released the highly anticipated banners for Super Gogeta and Janemba. However, there were 2 main issues that greatly infuriated global players. They massively changed both banners and included Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Omega Shenron, who recently just had their leader skills implemented into Global Dokkan. The problem was that the banners were so different to their JP counterparts that it almost didn't make any sense. The Super and Extreme class theming of the two banners was completely discarded, and Gogeta's banner in particular was severely downgraded on Global. The second issue was the fact that the game suffered from an unscheduled maintenance for the entire day, which locked players from summoning or even playing the game during one of the most hyped banner drops ever. Global players were so upset that they dubbed this celebration as the "Fuck You celebration," as they felt like the devs were giving a massive middle finger to the global player base. It also didn't help that at the same time, JP received a new Super Dragon Ball Heroes collab banner, which was still exclusive to the Japanese version. This banner featured Darkness Toa, Super Saiyan 3 Trunks, and Super Saiyan 3 Teen Gohan, all of whom were decent and usable in Super Battle Road. Dokkan was releasing more Super Saiyan 3 units as of late, so it wasn't shocking when the next Dokkan Fest released leading the Super Saiyan 3 category, Super Saiyan 3 Bardock. Bardock gained 100% attack and defense when attacking with 12 or more ki, and when HP was 70% or less, he gave Super Class allies 40% attack. Bardock was already giving Super Saiyan 3 category allies 170% attack from his leader skill, so an additional 40% attack from his passive supercharged the units around him, and made the Super Saiyan 3 team the hardest hitting team in the game. Bardock himself was also capable of putting out really good damage, and he further pushed Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, EZA Super Saiyan 3 Goku, Super Saiyan 3 Broly, and Super Saiyan 3 Angel Goku into the top 10 hardest hitting TURs in the game. Moving on to the month of December, the 22nd World Tournament introduced a new LR as the local ranking reward, LR Tien and Chaozu. They weren't as good as LR Piccolo on release, but they were solid on AGL teams. A few days later, we received one of the best quality of life updates ever. You could now unlock multiple nodes in the hidden potential at once, instead of going one node at a time. This was long overdue, and reduced the time it took to 100% a character from 15 plus minutes to only half a minute. The Christmas campaign kicked off a week later, and they released a new double race banner featuring Tapion, who strangely had his own Dokkan event, and Dokkan awakened into a TUR. Tapion was the leader for the Giant Form category, consisting of characters that have an in-game Giant Form transformation. As you would expect, this category was incredibly limited, but Tapion had an interesting effect in his leader skill. Not only did he give 3 ki and 150% stats, but he also increased the maximum number of times a character could turn into a giant form by +1 for all allies. Tapion was very powerful and was one of the best options for Super Battle Road. He reduced damage received by 50%, and when HP was 50% or less, he gained 50% defense, 150% attack, and transformed into Harudagard for 2 to 3 turns. It was very common to see Harudagard in Super Battle Road, and he would become invincible for most of the fight while whittling away at the enemy's HP. However, one major flaw Tapion had was the fact that he went from Super Class to Extreme Class upon transforming. For example, if you were running Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta's team, he would lose the 3 ki and 120% buff, and only get the 1 ki and 50% buff from Vegeta's leader skill as Harudagard. Some of you might have noticed, but since this was a double race banner, it meant that there was a new LR card in the unfeatured pool, LR Super Saiyan 3 Goku. Super Saiyan 3 Goku was the most powerful LR release we had seen since LR Broly. Goku's passive was very simple. He gained 120% defense at the start of turn, and when attacking with 18 or more ki, he gained a staggering 180% attack at the cost of 70% defense. Super Saiyan 3 Goku was a great tank before attacking, and dealt an absurd amount of damage at 18 plus ki, dethroning LR Gohan and LR Broly as the hardest hitting unit in the game. He needed to launch an ultra super attack in order to reach that peak, but under optimal conditions on Super Saiyan 3 Bardock's team, LR Super Saiyan 3 Goku was calculated to be at 18 or more ki 85% of the time. He further skyrocketed the overall damage output of the Super Saiyan 3 team, and he was considered to be the new best unit in the game. And that wasn't all, because Dokkan decided to end the year with a bang. A week later, we got the EZA of the first ever Dokkan Fest, STR Broly. He didn't receive as big of a glow up as Super Saiyan 3 Goku, but he was still very powerful, especially if you didn't have LR Broly. His event was weak to Hybrid Saiyans category characters, and it was much easier than Super Saiyan 3 Goku's event, though still very challenging. The real hype, however, came 2 days later. Super Gogeta and Janemba received their second Dual Dokkan Fest earlier in the year, so it was about time to revisit the godly duo that broke the game just a year prior.
神に逆らう愚か者め、万死に値するぞ。受けてみな。
Vegito Blue and Rose were the New Year's Dual Dokkan Fest headliners, and they possessed upgraded hero and villain leader skills. They gave Super and Extreme type allies 3 key and 120% to stats when the team was composed of all 5 Super/Extreme types. Although this was more restrictive than physical Vegito Blue and AGL Rose's leader skills, they were still supremely good leaders and arguably had the best leader skills in the game. Just like physical Vegito Blue, this new iteration was an offensive behemoth. He launched an additional attack that had a medium chance of becoming a super, as well as a 70% chance of launching another additional attack that had a medium chance of becoming a super. Furthermore, for every attack performed, Vegito Blue gained 15% attack, up to a maximum of 150%. He was the hardest hitting TUR in the game, and when he was fully built up, he blew every other TUR in the game out the water in terms of damage. He was also the second Dokkan Fest unit after STR Cell to stack attack and defense on Super, so Vegito Blue's numbers were even higher in longer events. Similar to how TEQ Vegito Blue mirrored physical Vegito Blue, STR Rose was also very similar to AGL Rose, being more well-rounded than Vegito Blue. He gained 120% attack at the start of turn, and gave extreme class allies 3 key and 50% defense. This defense support made every unit next to Rose tankier, and Rose linked with LR Goku Black and Zamasu was a devastating rotation. He also lowered super class enemies' attack and defense by 20%, making him a very strong option in Super Battle Road. Both units were incredible, and each one had a claim as the #1 TUR for completely different reasons. Their banner units were also among the best banner units to date. Both reduced damage received by 40% at the start of turn, and gained additional stats based on the amount of HP remaining. Zamasu gained up to 60% attack and defense the more HP you had remaining, and Super Saiyan Trunks gained up to 120% attack and defense the less HP you had remaining. They both possessed powerful super attack effects, allowing them to perform well in Super Battle Road. The player base was massively satisfied with these new units, and Dokkan was releasing banger after banger. Momentum was very high, and the hype was through the roof. During the release of Rose's banner, an error occurred on the image of the banner, which displayed the TUR art of Super Saiyan 3 Broly instead of the SSR art. All players who summoned on the banner while Broly was displayed incorrectly were refunded all their Dragon Stones. Although Dokkan had refunded stones for banner issues twice in the past 6 weeks, raising some eyebrows, this incident wasn't as significant as previous controversies. However, at this point, morale among global Dokkan players was at an all-time low. The string of previous controversies had already worn down the community, and the New Year celebration only added fuel to the fire. Global players were furious because they had experienced similar banner display issues in the past, yet never received the same level of generous compensation that JP players were getting. To make matters worse, ever since the conclusion of the legendary election, global players had been eagerly waiting for LR Vegito Blue. While they were finally given the SSR and TUR versions of Vegito Blue in the middle of December, his LR form was still nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, JP released a shiny new Vegito Blue card, while Global was stuck waiting for the one they were promised. This time period marked what many consider to be the lowest morale the global Dokkan community had ever experienced. The start of 2018 brought with it a new trophy card for both JP and Global, Kimono Android 18. The unit itself was whatever, but Kimono 18 had one of the most unique card arts in the game, making her a very beloved trophy card. The SSR and TUR versions of LR Vegito Blue made their way onto JP a month after they came out on Global. He seemed quite underwhelming to both player bases, and people were simply waiting for him to become an LR to see how strong he would actually become. About 2 weeks later, we entered the 3rd anniversary countdown campaign. The countdown images were all Namek themed, and many people were speculating we were about to get a Super Saiyan Goku and full power Frieza dual Dokkan Fest. Little did we know, however, Dokkan was about to pull the biggest bait and switch ever, and the true anniversary headliners were something no one in their right mind could have ever predicted.